April 23rd, 2026. That's the night the Raiders stop being a joke. For the first time in forever, they have the first overall pick. And they're not trading it, they're not overthinking it, they're taking Fernando Mendoza. A quarterback who 2 years ago, most fans had never even heard of. Here's what you need to know about this kid. In 2023, he was at Cal, fighting just to stay on the field. The so-called experts said he was a mid-tier recruit, nothing special. But Mendoza didn't care what they said. He just worked. By the end of that season, he'd thrown for nearly 1,800 yards and 14 touchdowns. Not bad for a guy who wasn't supposed to be anything. Then 2024 hit, over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know who this kid was. But instead of going to some big-name school, Mendoza did something weird. He picked Indiana. Yes, Indiana, the team that's been losing for 30 years. People thought he lost his mind. Turns out, he knew exactly what he was doing. When Fernando Mendoza told people he was transferring to Indiana, the reactions were brutal. Why there? Are you serious? You're killing your career. And look, you can't blame them. Indiana football has been a punchline for decades. Losing seasons, empty stadiums, games that end by noon so nobody has to watch. But Mendoza saw something everyone else missed. He saw a coach named Curt Cignetti who actually knew what he was doing. A staff that had just taken Indiana to the playoffs for the first time ever. A group of receivers who were hungry. And most importantly, he saw a chance to prove that he wasn't just another quarterback. He was the guy who could turn a loser into a winner. So he showed up in Bloomington, quiet, focused, and went to work. The first few practices, people weren't sure what to think. Then, week 4 happened. Illinois came to town ranked and ready. By the time the game ended, Indiana had put up 63 points. Illinois had 10. And Mendoza looked like he'd been running that offense for 10 years. That's when the whispers started. Wait, is Indiana actually good? Wait, is Mendoza actually that good? Turns out, yeah, he was. Remember that Oregon game? The one where everyone thought Indiana would finally get exposed? Third-ranked Oregon rolls into town. 5-star players everywhere. NFL scouts in the stands. The whole country watching to see the cute little Indiana story finally end. And for a while, it looked like that's exactly what would happen. Then, Mendoza did something weird. He got calm. Not nervous, not scared. Calm. Like he'd been in this spot 1,000 times before. Third down after third down, he kept making the right read. Kept finding the open guy. Kept extending plays with his legs when nothing was there. By the time the fourth quarter rolled around, Oregon's defense looked lost. Their coaches looked confused. And Mendoza just kept doing his thing. Final score, Indiana 30, Oregon 20. After the game, one of the Oregon defenders sat at his locker staring at the floor. A reporter asked what happened. He just shook his head and said, "That dude is different. He just doesn't make mistakes." And that's when the whispers turned into shouts. This wasn't a fluke anymore. This was real. Ohio State. Big Ten championship. #1 team in the country. Let me paint you a picture of that Ohio State roster. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Tre'Veyon Henderson. 5 guys who will hear their names called in the first round of the NFL draft. A team built like a video game roster. A team that was supposed to crush Indiana and remind everyone who really runs the Big Ten. For 3 quarters, that's exactly what happened. Ohio State's defense was flying around. Their offense was moving the ball. Indiana looked like they were just happy to be there. Then the fourth quarter started. Mendoza took the snap on 3rd and long. Pocket collapsed. 3 Ohio State defenders in his face. Any other quarterback takes the sack and punts. But Mendoza spun left, ducked under an arm, stepped up, and fired a strike to a receiver he couldn't even see. He just knew he'd be there. First down. A few plays later, he did it again, and again, and again. When the clock hit 0, the scoreboard said Indiana 13, Ohio State 10. The #1 team in the country had just lost to Indiana. Indiana. Guys on the Ohio State sideline sat on the bench with towels over their heads. Some of them were crying, not because they lost, but because they didn't understand how they lost. Mendoza walked off the field with 222 yards, a touchdown, and 0 doubt in his eyes. He didn't celebrate like crazy, didn't scream or jump around. He just nodded at his coach and walked to the locker room, like he knew this was always going to happen. National championship, Indiana versus Miami, fourth quarter, 3 minutes left. Miami had fought back from being down big. They kept punching, kept clawing. Now the game was tied and Indiana had the ball near midfield. One drive, one chance to win it all. Mendoza dropped back, felt pressure immediately. The pocket collapsed just like it had 100 times before. But here's the thing about Mendoza. He never panics, never flinches. He rolled right, saw a lane, took off running. Now, if you've watched Mendoza for years, you know he's not a running quarterback. He's a passer, a pocket guy. But in that moment, something flipped. He lowered his shoulder, bounced off one defender, spun away from another, and kept going. 10 yards, 15, 20. He was at the 5-yard line with guys hanging off him. Then he dove. Not a slide, not a get-out-of-bounds safe play. A dive, head first, ball stretched out, straight into the end zone. Touchdown. Indiana wins, national champions. The stadium lost its mind. Players ran onto the field crying. Confetti fell from everywhere. And Mendoza? He just lay there in the end zone for a second, looking up at the lights, thinking about every person who said he couldn't do it, every scout who passed on him, every coach who didn't believe. When he finally stood up, his mom was somehow on the field, hugging him, both of them crying. That's when you knew. This kid wasn't just good. He was special, the kind of special that comes around once every 10 years. And the NFL was about to find out. Most rookie quarterbacks get drafted into a nightmare. They show up to a team with no talent, no line, no weapons, and get thrown to the wolves while the franchise hides behind rebuilding. By year 3, they're broken. By year 4, they're out of the league. That's not what's waiting for Mendoza in Las Vegas. Look at what the Raiders have built. A coach in Pete Carroll who actually knows how to win. An offense built around a system that makes quarterbacks look smarter than they are. And 2 weapons that most NFL teams can only dream about. Ashton Jeanty in the backfield. The guy runs angry. Runs like every carry is personal. Defenses have to put 8 guys in the box just to slow him down. Brock Bowers at tight end. Already top 3 at his position. Too big for defensive backs. Too fast for linebackers. A security blanket who can turn a 5-yard pass into a 60-yard gain. Put Mendoza in that huddle. With those guys, with that coach, with that system. Suddenly the kid from Cal who nobody wanted is standing in the perfect situation. The kind of situation that turns good rookies into great ones. The kind of situation that wins playoff games. Here's the part of the story that doesn't get talked about enough. Money. The Raiders have over $100 million in cap space. That's not a typo. $100 million to spend on players. And here's the beautiful part. Mendoza costs almost nothing right now because he's on a rookie deal. Think about what that means. While other teams are paying their quarterbacks $50 million a year and can't afford anyone else, the Raiders can go shopping. They can fix that offensive line. They can add 2 or 3 really good defensive players. They can bring in a veteran receiver to help Mendoza learn the ropes. Remember when the Houston Texans did this with CJ Stroud? They had cap space, a cheap quarterback, and suddenly they went from a 4-win team to a playoff team overnight. The Raiders are about to do the exact same thing. Mendoza plays on a budget deal. The front office spends big everywhere else. The team gets better fast. That's how you win in today's NFL. That's how you build something that lasts. And the Raiders know it. April 23rd, 2026, Las Vegas. The draft stage is set. Roger Goodell walks up to the microphone. The Raiders are on the clock. For years, this franchise has been known for losing, for bad decisions, for quarterbacks who didn't work out, for fans who kept showing up anyway, hoping things would change. Goodell opens the envelope. With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana. The crowd erupts. Mendoza puts on the silver and black hat, hugs his mom, walks to the stage. And for the first time in a long time, the Raiders have something they haven't had in years. Hope. Real hope. Not the fake kind you tell yourself in July, the real kind. The kind backed by a quarterback who turned Cal into something. Who turned Indiana into champions. Who showed up in big games and made big plays when it mattered most. Now he's in Vegas. With a coach who wins, with weapons who scare defenses, with enough money to build a real team around him. The kid nobody wanted is now the face of a franchise. The mid-tier recruit is the first pick in the draft. The underdog is finally on top. And all those years of losing, all those bad seasons, all those moments when Raiders fans walked out of the stadium disappointed, they're about to be a memory. Because in Las Vegas, the bet is finally paying off. Just win, baby. Blessings to all my subscribers, family. Your support means everything. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and I'll catch you in the next one.